We have all felt that strange, heavy pause. It is the moment right before a major choice. You stand at the edge of a new direction, yet something holds you back. You tell yourself you are preparing. You believe you are waiting for the right timing or more information. But have you ever noticed how the longer you wait, the more the opportunity seems to fade? Most of us treat a decision like a bridge we have to build piece by piece. We think change is a slow process of effort and time. This is something many people overlook. The life you are seeking does not require a long journey to reach. It is not waiting for you in the future. There is a hidden mechanism behind the way reality shifts. The version of your life you want already exists, and it is closer than you think. Consider those days when everything seems to fall into place without effort. You meet the right person at the exact right time. A problem that seemed impossible suddenly resolves itself. In these moments, life feels light, as if you are finally moving with the current rather than against it. But then the contrast appears. You might spend weeks or months feeling heavy, as if every step requires immense willpower. You try to force change, yet the harder you push, the more resistance you encounter. Something unusual happens in moments like these. We often assume this friction is a sign to work harder, but this is something many people misinterpret.
The pattern appears more often than we realize, showing us that our external reality is responding to a shift that has already happened internally. Why does the flow vanish just as quickly as it arrives? This suggests that a familiar experience may have a much deeper meaning than we once thought. Stay with me, because in a moment you will see why this pattern changes everything. Think back to a time when you made a sudden, firm choice. Perhaps it was a small impulse to take a different route, or a major decision to leave a situation behind. Have you ever noticed how immediately after that choice, the world around you seemed to reorganize? Suddenly, the phone rings with the exact news you needed. You find the information you were searching for in a random conversation. This is the strange consistency many people notice, yet we often misinterpret it as a simple good day or a stroke of luck. But then the pattern reveals its other side. You experience weeks where every door seems locked. You feel a persistent friction, as if you are swimming against a heavy tide. This repetition suggests something deeper than random chance. The pattern becomes difficult to ignore when you realize that these shifts, both the flow and the resistance, always seem to follow a specific internal state. This is where the pattern becomes clear. We aren't just moving through a static world, we are experiencing a reflection.
The consistency of these moments hints that a deeper, invisible rule is operating beneath the surface of our daily lives. This is where the experience begins to make sense. We have been taught to view a decision as a mental act, a way to plan for a future that hasn't happened yet. But this reveals something important about how reality actually works. A decision is not the preparation for change, it is the change itself. The teaching is simpler than most people expect. Your internal state acts as a resonance. When you truly decide, you are not just thinking a new thought. You are aligning with a version of yourself that already exists in a specific state of being. This is why the flow appears so suddenly. The moment you commit to a new direction, you are no longer in the old reality looking at the new one. You have shifted your frequency to match the experience you desire. Suddenly, the pattern becomes easier to understand. The friction you felt before wasn't a lack of effort. It was the result of trying to reach a new destination while staying on the old frequency. You were essentially trying to hear a specific song while staying tuned to the wrong station. This is the hidden rule behind the experience. Reality does not move in a linear line. It exists as a series of static frames, much like a reel of film. Each frame is a complete, distinct version of your life. When you make a true, unwavering decision, you are not actually changing the world around you. You are changing your point of view. Think of it like a navigation system in a car. The moment you input a new destination, the map does not slowly grow new roads. Instead, the system immediately recalculates. It shows you a different path that was already there, just waiting to be selected. This explains why the pattern behaves this way. Why does the flow disappear the moment we ignore the signal? Because by hesitating, you have essentially tuned back to the old frequency. You are trying to watch a new movie while keeping the old film reel in the projector. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, even if you never noticed it. Every time you felt that sudden burst of synchronicity, it was simply the result of you finally looking at a frame that matches your internal state. Suddenly, the pattern makes sense. The how of your new life is handled by the map itself. Your only job is to provide the coordinates through the clarity of your decision. If the mechanism is this simple, why does the life we desire often feel so far away? This is where many of us lose the signal. The difficulty rarely comes from the outside world. It comes from a deeply ingrained internal resistance. We have been conditioned to believe that life must be a struggle to be valid. The moment excitement appears, the inner voice begins to argue. It whispers that your impulse is unrealistic or that you are being irresponsible. This is the moment excitement is replaced by doubt.
Most people mistake this obstacle for wisdom or responsibility. We confuse caution with intelligence and interpret our fear as logic. How many times has a genuine spark of inspiration been silenced by the need for a guaranteed outcome? When we demand to see the whole path before taking the first step, we effectively disconnect from the navigation system. The frequency drops, and the flow we once felt is replaced by a familiar, heavy stagnation. This is not a failure of the mechanism, but a return to an old, predictable frame of reality. Have you ever noticed yourself doing this? If you have experienced moments where you talked yourself out of a clear signal, I'm curious to hear about it in the comments. To begin navigating this new reality, you only need a simple, repeatable method. This is where the navigation begins. First, look at the options available to you right now. Identify the one that contains even a tiny spark more excitement or curiosity than the others. Second, act on that signal to the best of your ability. This does not require a grand life change. It might be as simple as making a phone call, starting a sketch, or finally reading that book. Follow this path as far as it naturally goes, until you can take it no further. Then, and this is the most vital step, release all attachment to what the outcome should look like. Trust that the signal of excitement is the mechanism itself doing the work for you.
This is how the signal becomes action, and how the shift in your timeline actually starts. The formula works best when followed with a sense of light-hearted curiosity rather than pressure. You are not forcing a result. You are exploring a new frequency. How different would a day feel if you followed this subtle signal instead of your habitual fear? If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations into how consciousness and reality interact. The change rarely starts with something dramatic. It usually begins in the quietest moments of your morning. Imagine you are sitting at your desk, feeling the familiar weight of a long to-do list. Suddenly, a small, unrelated curiosity pulls at you. You feel a sudden impulse to reach out to an old colleague you haven't spoken to in years. Your logical mind might dismiss it as a distraction, But instead of ignoring the signal, you take 2 minutes to send a simple message. An hour later, they respond with an invitation to a project that perfectly matches your skills. This is often how the shift begins. By following that tiny spark of excitement, you moved into a version of the day where that connection was active. The signal usually appears in small moments: a book falling off a shelf, a random conversation overheard in a cafe, or a sudden urge to take a walk. You may have already experienced similar moments without realizing their significance, dismissing them as mere coincidence. Have you ever followed a small curiosity that led somewhere unexpected? When you stop viewing these events as accidents, you begin to see them as the map recalculating in real time. This changes the way we understand the experience of being alive. When we look closer at this mechanism, we realize that the life we are seeking is not something we are creating from nothing, it is something we are uncovering. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality. Every possible version of your life already exists as a potential frequency. You are not waiting for the world to change so that you can feel better. You are changing your resonance so that a different world can become visible. Suddenly, the pattern reveals a deeper meaning. Your excitement is not just a random emotion, it is a literal communication from a version of yourself that is already living the reality you desire. It is a lighthouse beam cutting through the fog of habit. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life, noticing that the boundary between who you are and who you wish to be is thinner than you were taught to believe. In this light, a decision is the most powerful tool you possess. It is the act of choosing which ripple in the infinite ocean of possibility you wish to follow. The life you are seeking is not a destination you are moving toward. It is a frequency you are choosing to embody. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, hiding in the small, quiet curiosities you once dismissed as distractions. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing that you are not a passenger in this reality, but the one selecting the frame. As you move through your day, you may begin to notice something new, small patterns of alignment that were previously invisible. How many of these signals have appeared quietly in your life while you were looking for something louder? The journey of awareness does not require you to force the world to change, but to trust the compass that is already built into your being. The path is already unfolding around you, waiting for the clarity of your next decision. For those who wish to understand the deeper mechanics behind this signal, the exploration continues as we dive into how these hidden frequencies shape the physical world.